Hey everybody, Dr. Lee here, physical therapist and co-owner of PhysioLogic Physical Therapy. And for today's Therapy Thursday, I have some information that I'd like to share with you that I find very helpful for people that are dealing with nagging pain or trying to rehabilitate from a surgery or an injury and are trying to get back to their level of function that they can enjoy their lives without being limited by pain. It's also been helpful in my experience for people dealing with vertigo or dizziness that's brought on by certain activity levels. And this information can help you basically get back to a higher level of function without being limited by pain or dizziness. Now, this information comes from a course that I attended at CSM in Boston this year and is presented by Evidence in Motion by some really great researchers in the physical therapy field, Adrian Lowe, Louis Puentedora, just to name drop a couple of them. And this information was presented in the context of whiplash-associated disorders, talks about some of the physical issues that these people deal with, and then some of the lingering psychological issues that nagging pain and chronic pain can have on an individual, and how those two domains of symptomology, physical and psychological, can overlap and impact each other. So what can we as physical therapists do to help address both of those problems? The first thing you need to know is what not to do. So behind me I have a couple of graphs. To define the terms and to define the graphs, we need to know what we're dealing with. On our axis here we have activity. On our x-axis is of course time. One thing to note here is this red threshold, this red line denotes a pain threshold. Anything under here would be activity that is not painful. Anything above this red line is activity that would be considered painful, and the higher you go, the more pain you're dealing with. So these two graphs are going to represent problematic paradigms in rehab in the context of rehabilitation. On the left side here, we may have a group of people that you would consider the no pain, no gain group. They may have pain at certain levels of activity, but they're going to push through it anyway, and they're going to go, well, I gotta, play my soccer game, I gotta play my basketball game, and they push through their pain, and then what happens after that is they crash. And this may be different for different people and different injuries. Down here may be like getting in and out of bed, getting to the kitchen, getting to the bathroom, this is fine, but when you've been up and about for more than an hour or 2 hours, you hit your pain threshold, and then anything above that is sending you into more pain. And these people, they may push, and be up and about, going to the grocery store, trying to get around in the community, or again, trying to play a soccer game, basketball game, and they're really pushing themselves to their limits. And then what happens afterwards is they crash down. And this is when they're so low that maybe they can't even get out of bed, or they can't live their daily life like they need to. And this may last hours, days, or weeks. And then they start to feel better and they start to get up out of bed again. They're like, okay, I can do this. I can get back to life. And then they do the same thing. They get back to their pain threshold. They're like, well, I really want to play basketball or soccer or go to the grocery store. And they do it again, and then they crash. And we have this sinusoidal, cyclical, and repetitious pattern that's actually a problem because they're pushing too hard, inflaming their tissues, irritating their tissues, and then they're crashing too low. And the problem with that is we're not stimulating our pain threshold enough to make a long-term difference. This also applies in the setting of physical therapy. What people do outside of physical therapy is just as important as what people are doing inside physical therapy. If you are living your life and then you go to physical therapy and you're performing up here and then you crash outside of physical therapy and repeat 2 or 3 times a week, and during physical therapy, you're really pushing it, and outside of physical therapy, you're not doing anything at home. You're just crashing, sitting at home, not doing any of your exercises, and then you go back to physical therapy in a couple of days, you're essentially doing the same thing and creating that same pattern. That's a problem. So we're going to talk about how to better address that and how to better deal with that. But first, let me address the other side of the spectrum that can be problematic when you're dealing with rehabilitation. Over here, we might have the crew that we would call the if it hurts, don't do it. Okay, now these are the people, again, they get up out of bed, they start getting about their day, and then maybe they're trying to go to the kitchen to make a sandwich. They're like, oh, my knee hurts, my back hurts, my neck hurts, whatever it is. So they turn back and they're like, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm going to sit back down or lay back down and make sure I feel better. And they're like, okay, I'm starting to feel better. Let me get up and go to the kitchen. Nope, that hurts too much. I'm going to stop. I'm going to lay down and stop doing anything. And again, it's a cyclical, repetitious pattern, but they're never crossing or challenging their pain threshold and adapt to whatever the stimulus is. So these, again, are problematic graphs or problematic paradigms in rehabilitation. I'm going to show now a graph that's going to represent the ideal way to rehabilitate following injury or surgery or any of the things that we mentioned already. Okay, so let's take a look at that. And ta-da! We now have a graph that better represents an ideal approach to rehabilitation after injury or surgery. You can see compared to the graph before, this blue line representing activity isn't going way above this pain threshold and then crashing down and repeating that pattern. It's staying much closer to this pain threshold throughout that recovery time. In the terms of the example of the basketball player that we provided earlier, this would be activity that's tolerable, getting around, getting about the day, no issue. And then getting out on the basketball court, maybe warm up is still tolerable. You start playing that first quarter and quickly realize, okay, my ankle is not going to hold up through this whole game. So what do? You get off the court, you start doing some of the lighter exercises that your therapist told you about. You ice, you do some manual or soft tissue mobilization, something that's going to get that ankle or knee or back or neck, whatever your issue is, something that's going to get it feeling a little bit better where you can tolerate your activity, but not crashing way down here, not laying in bed, sitting in a chair, doing nothing, staying active within tolerable ranges, and then pushing it again, maybe getting back out on the court or pushing your threshold for activity without taking yourself up to feeling terrible pain or miserable pain. So we call this pacing and graded exposure to higher level of activities. And what happens over time is your body adapts to those activity levels and your pain threshold increases. So if you're hanging out at this level and kind of going up and above, but down below your threshold, your body says, hey, this is kind of where we hang out. This is a normal level of activity. And your nervous system will improve and increase its capacity to tolerate this level of activity. And then what do we do as therapists? If you're seeing us as therapists, we're going to push your activity level to meet that new level of tolerance and capacity. And we continue that until you are back at your prior level of function, or hopefully at a new level of capacity and tolerance for activity, maybe better than before you started physical therapy or before you were injured. The takeaway message here is what you're doing outside of therapy and what you're doing while recovering from injury is important, whether you're exercising or you're focused on your recovery. So again, in the context of physical therapy, maybe your physical therapy session is pushing you here, and when you go home, you're still staying active. Maybe you're not pushing it to the same level that you're doing in a therapy session. You're keeping up with your exercises and challenging yourself at home so that the next time you get into physical therapy, you're pushing above that threshold and staying close to that throughout the day, throughout your course of your rehabilitation. And again, over time, your body adapts and improves its capacity. So it's very important that what you're doing outside of therapy looks similar to what you're doing in therapy. It's okay to recover, it's okay to rest, but you should still try to push what you can tolerate so that you're encouraging your tissues to heal and to adapt to that level of stimuli. Let me provide a quick example of the same graph in the context of somebody dealing with vertigo and dizziness. Someone dealing with vertigo and dizziness, maybe getting out of bed, getting around is okay, and then if they're walking and turning their head from side to side as they walk, maybe that's something that sets off their dizziness, and that's something that we're going to exploit and target in physical therapy. When we're treating people for dizziness and vertigo, if it's due to a vestibular hypofunction or because the vestibular systems need compensation, then we are going to try to target those activities that make you feel dizzy and make you feel uncomfortable so that your brain and your nervous system can adapt and make changes and correction to those activities. So in therapy, we'll challenge that dizziness and then let you rest. And then we'll go back and challenge that dizziness and let you rest. And again, over time, challenging and living at that level brings on some of that dizziness. Your body will adapt. So this threshold, this red line increases, your threshold for activity without feeling symptoms increases. And then we in physical therapy push your new levels of activity to meet where that threshold is and to continue pushing that threshold to a higher level. From here to here, you have much more room for tolerable activities over time. And that's how a good course of rehabilitation should go. Meet you at your level of challenge at the activity that's challenging for you so that your body can increase its capacity and improve over time. That's a lot of information. Hopefully, if you're dealing with something like an injury or a vestibular issue, dizziness, pain, hopefully some of this information was helpful. You're dealing with pain or dizziness that needs to be evaluated by a professional, absolutely feel free to call us, reach out to us at PhysioLogic Physical Therapy and see if that's something that we can help you with. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow. All right, thanks for watching.